Rasmus Andersson has been dealt, which proves that the Calgary Flames' problem to solve isn't getting out of the murky middle. It's getting into a position where they don't have to continue to deal players that they cannot re-sign.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On Flames, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Rasmus Andersson has been traded. We'll talk about what happened and why it matters. Plus, meet the new Flames, 2 players heading back to Calgary in return with some draft capital. And Calgary has to get right back into action as the Flames take on the New Jersey Devils on Monday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time in Calgary. My name is Ryan G. I'm a lifelong play-by-play broadcaster and I'm based in the Pacific Northwest. I've been a 2 decades long Flames fan since they made the 2004 Stanley Cup final, and Peter Marr was my soundtrack as the Hall of Fame broadcaster on those radio calls. Rasmus Andersson has been traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Calgary having to let go of Rasmus, the pending free agent, and in return acquiring defenseman Zach Whitecloud. They've also picked up a prospect from the University of North Dakota, Abram Wiebe, a conditional first-round pick in 2027, as well as a conditional second-rounder in 2028 that can bump up to a first-round pick as well. Calgary will retain 50% of the rest of Andersson's salary the final year of his 6-year deal, and that's part of the reason that this trade happens. Calgary has to get rid of Rasmus Andersson because he's a pending free agent, have to try to find a way to get something in return, and it's the contract piece that we'll get to in a little bit that was a big part of the reason this happened. But after a long tenure, 580 plus games of the Calgary Flames, Rasmus Andersson is gone, and this proves the Flames organization is just in a position where they have to make moves like this. And it's the reality of not being one of those prime organizations, a destination organization, a competitive organization that the Flames would like to be. I would like them to be, in order to try to bring people in that want to win. It's also continuing to kind of be a discussion too of like, if the conversation's about money, is Calgary the right place for free agents to come? Certainly not seemingly the case over the last 10 years for this franchise. I mean, you have the third substantial big name player gone from the roster, going back to the Johnny Gaudreau exit and then the Matthew Tkachuk trade. And it's just getting frustrating for Flames fans. But the solution being this idea that they have to have a top 5 pick to succeed is not necessarily where I see the magic wand being. Instead, I think there's a piece of evidence that's starting to get my attention more so in terms of where the murky middle part is the inability to be able to attract big name talent, find a reason to keep people around for that big second stay that they could possibly have with Calgary, like Rasmus has kind of dealt with. And so I'm comfortable with the idea of Calgary, going through a rebuild that has structure in the top 15 of drafts, the top 20 of drafts. I think you can accumulate trade capital, which, if you're going to hang your hat on where GM Craig Conroy and the Flames are going, especially with this trade, having acquired another first-round pick from Vegas. They already have the Golden Knights 2026 first-round pick. Now they have the 2027. My understanding is if the Stanley Cup championship goes to the Golden Knights this season, they earn that. Then Calgary's 2028 pick is going from a second rounder to a first rounder. But there's a lot of draft capital that the Flames have accumulated now that I think makes for a possible turnaround of this franchise happening through picks that do land between 8 and 20. You're kind of looking at the Zane Parekh type space. Calgary has never had that, top draft pick. We were talking about this on last week's shows, where Sam Bennett's the highest draft pick at number 4 that Calgary has ever had. And I think you can build winning teams just as fast with those middle round picks if you acquire enough capital. Yes, there's a big moment for Montreal with having a top 5 pick that has been part of the solution for the Canadiens. But as we've modeled different looks at how Calgary can build into a contender, we've shown evidence that Montreal wasn't built necessarily in the top 5 of the draft. It was being able to find good picks that have happened even in picks 10 through 20. And Calgary has had opportunities to select, at least in the top 5 once in the last few draft cycles. So I think that people have gotten this idea that the opportunity for Calgary is to only pick high. And I'm a little bit more interested in seeing the possibility of what Calgary can do now that they've had to make another deal for a guy that they couldn't hold on to and have to use the draft capital that they're acquiring. This Vegas pick likely going to be something that's far later in the first round because of how good the Golden Knights have been. They're making this deal to get somebody who's going to help them win a Stanley Cup this year because they're trading away their 2027 first round pick after already dealing their 2026 first round pick to the Calgary Flames in the Noah Hanifin deal. Why the trade happened? It looked like contracts being a big reason. Sportsnet insider reporter Elliot Friedman saying there's no extension for Andersson as part of the deal. The chances of him going to Boston ended without an extension. Vegas was always willing to take a chance they could eventually sign him, and the general manager of the Calgary Flames discussed just that point with NHL Flames on X.
As we were going along, at times different things changed, whether what they were looking for, what we were looking for. But in the end, to kind of be able to get it done with Vegas, they were willing to do it and do it without a contract, because that was one thing that was made clear to us just in the last maybe 12 hours was there wasn't going to be an extension signed with any of the teams. So that definitely changed the way we had to negotiate and what we got back in return.
So according to Conroy, you're looking at half a day to know that the idea of getting some sort of extension done with Rasmus for the team that he is heading to was not going to happen. And so if that's the case, that's the parameters that Calgary had to work in for this trade. And I think it's, from a sentimental standpoint, I'm definitely an emotional fan. It's tough to see guys who you want to keep in your uniform have to leave because you've positioned yourself as a franchise to not be able to retain them. I think that frustration is shared with me and many of you who do want to see top 5 picks for this franchise. But at the same time, it's not the only way that Calgary can build it. And I'm happy, at least, if nothing else, that Calgary was able to come back home on Saturday, beat the Islanders, and give Rasmus kind of a send-off. It'll also help, I think, when we talk about the return that Calgary got for Rasmus Andersson. We'll talk more about getting them into the middle of this home stretch of games, too, which is nice for Calgary. Maybe get them more acclimated to being in the Flames organization. But Rasmus Andersson on X saying, Calgary, thank you for everything you've done for me. Ever since being drafted in 2015, I've loved the organization. I've truly loved every second of playing for this amazing team and city. To all the fans, thank you for always supporting me and keeping me honest, all the same at the same time. To my teammates, coaches, training staff, and everyone at the front office, thank you. Wishing the Flames nothing but the best in the future. I'll always be a fan. And I think the hardest part for Calgary fans is you got 3 of those games done against the Knights. You're going to have one more coming up in early April. And the nice thing, at least, is that matchup is going to be on the road. So the first chance to see Rasmus in a Vegas Golden Knights uniform or a non-Calgary Flames uniform in Alberta would likely come in the 2026-27 season because of no more games against the Golden Knights in Scotiabank Saddledome this year. On a trade, there's the guy who leaves, and there's the return. We'll meet the new Flames when this edition of Locked On Flames rolls on. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get the Profit Boost Pack waiting for them inside the app. It is essential for your game day. Get a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like most. Here's the process. Open up your Profit Boost Pack first thing on game day. See which that you like the best to apply. And again, they let you lean into your instincts. So whether you're backing momentum or quarterback play, you like the coaching matchup or the defense, this is going to give you the opportunity to get more juice on the bets that you like the most instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost Pack every NFL playoff game day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Flames your first listen every day. Thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. My goal is to try to get our podcast out every single day at the same time, try to give you some consistency around your listening schedule to make it easier for you to make us your first listen of every day. And when you're an Everydayer Club member, everything gets better because you can get access to our podcast with an ad-free audio feed on different players like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever major podcast app that you like to listen to, we have your back. But the coolest part is getting that Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, because there's a place where you can just share your passion for your team, just like everybody who listens to one of the shows on the Locked On Podcast Network has the same. And like I said, I'm wearing my Denver Broncos sweatshirt today. I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan. I listen to Cody and Sayre on Locked On Broncos, member of their Everydayer Club, and I'd invite you to join ours for the Calgary Flames and Locked On Flames by going to lockedonflames.supercast.com or tapping on the show notes link available to you. The Calgary Flames trade Rasmus Andersson. Andersson is off to the Vegas Golden Knights, who are the new Flames that are here in return for Calgary. Zach Whitecloud is the centerpiece from a personnel standpoint of this trade. Calgary getting Whitecloud in return. 2 years left on a 6-year deal, and had been part of the Vegas Golden Knights organization since Vegas became an organization. He's played over 360 games for the Golden Knights. 28 years old, was an undrafted free agent, and so far 23 goals, 78 total points in those 368 games that he's played, and he was part of their Stanley Cup team from 2023. Now, we have resources being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that includes having access to shows that know more about anybody that could be possibly visiting the Calgary Flames from the outside. And in this case, we have Locked On Vegas Golden Knights. They have some thoughts on where Whitecloud leaves the organization.
But his game, man, it was just not there for the Golden Knights. A ton of key turnovers, not good defensively getting back in front of the net. His game, to me, was faltering, and I think it was a good time for the Golden Knights to make that move and put him on the block.
The Flames value Whitecloud being a Stanley Cup champion better than the Golden Knights do, and that's just fine. That's how they feel. And this gives Whitecloud a chance to continue to grow, and into his own. I've thought of Whitecloud as a player who could easily wear a letter for a regular basis at some point in his career, whether with Vegas or obviously now elsewhere. He has that leadership quality. He has that calmness. He has just this strange, fun, comfortable demeanor when you interact with him. You mentioned great with the media. I've had a number of one-on-one interviews with him. Every time, very thorough, thought-out answer. He's talking to a human. He's not talking to you as a member of the media. So a lot of credit to Whitecloud for that. I did like how his game grew, but in the same breath, Tony, like you said, again, just plus minus, so everyone loves it, but 21-22, plus 21 on that bad Vegas Golden Knights team that missed the playoff, plus 10 in the Stanley Cup season, minus 3 in 23-24, plus 7 last year, minus 8 this year. And
Chris and Tony on Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, and a lengthier sound clip, but bring it to your attention to show that from the Vegas perspective, Whitecloud was starting to diminish, and 2 years left on his contract as he joins the Calgary Flames. I imagine what Craig Conroy is hoping for is somebody with a change of scenery, someone who is ready to move on potentially from a club, having an opportunity to kind of restart things. And that's what you hope for Calgary. I think I was already resigned to the fact that almost anybody you could bring back for Rasmus Andersson was not going to be of Rasmus Andersson's quality. The reason you're trading Andersson is because you have no reason for him to stay, meaning you can't provide him a reason to stay when he's a free agent over the summer. Otherwise, you keep Rasmus Andersson, right? So I don't find what their feedback being is terribly surprising. And I think the hope, and when you're a team that's struggling as much as Calgary is to make the playoffs each and every year, it's a grind just to have an opportunity like Calgary did last year. Then you're going to have to bank on upside when you're getting rid of somebody who's not going to be with the team long term. And so when you look at what Calgary gets in return, Zach Whitecloud is part of it. The other piece is Abram Wiebe, who's a prospect who plays for North Dakota. And Craig Conroy explained a little bit about both of the players coming back in this trade for Rasmus Andersson to NHL Flames on X.
Really good on the penalty kill, plays big minutes with a very good Vegas team. I watched him last night, just kind of watching the game. Him and Hannafin were together. So, he's going to bring the ability to come in here and help, especially on the penalty kill, and he's going to be able to eat lots of minutes for it. He's a big guy, well-rounded. He does everything well, but like you said, he's a leader on that team, and big guy too. So he's 6'3", moves well. Simple, direct, and hard, and that's what we kind of really liked about him. So to be able to kind of bring another North Dakota guy now. So it's nice to have another prospect in there, especially a left shot guy that we feel moving forward in the organization we'll be looking for.
Second part of that clip, Craig Conroy focusing in on Wiebe. This is a quote from the Calgary Herald, Daniel Austin, from the January 18th story. Wiebe, an assistant captain, and has been paired with Keaton Verhoff, who is expected to go into the top 5 of the 2026 NHL draft. Wiebe is also a left shot who put up 14 points in 24 games. That's something that Conroy also pointed out, was how excited he was about having a left shot guy in return on this play. So Wiebe so far 3 goals, 14 points for North Dakota this season as a sophomore, played all 38 and scored 4 goals, had 24 total points, and ranked 4th on the team in points, was second among UND blue liners, and finished -2, but had 58 block shots. There's mixed reviews just at a glance where you get the impression that he might be someone who doesn't join the team for quite some time. And so I think you focus more in on this idea of having Whitecloud, an immediate defenseman, Zane Parekh still eventually going to get back to the Calgary Flames. And so you have reinforcements on the way to kind of fill in that gap that Rasmus Andersson will leave. But, a guy who they hope will develop into something in Wiebe, and certainly Whitecloud being someone that they can have be a key piece in the next 2 years, with those 2 years remaining on his contract. I want to say a couple of things. First and foremost, for those who are sick of trading with the Vegas Golden Knights, I completely understand that piece. It's always difficult to trade in the division. It was tough to hear Conroy even mention that Rasmus, he's watching Whitecloud rather, getting set to make this deal, and there he is with Noah Hannafin. And so it feels a little bit like you have Flames South and Sin City, and that's got to be super frustrating. But we're going to dive deeper into specific versions of rebuilds during the Olympic break that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And again, I like the idea of how Montreal has structured their rebuild, and a lot of that was done in the middle part of the draft. And Calgary has some pretty solid prospect depth that we just haven't seen on NHL ice. I mentioned Zane Parekh, who's Calgary's, highest draft pick in recent memory, going number 9 in 2024. And he's played 12 NHL games. You get the trade that Calgary made with Vancouver, brought back Hunter Brustevich, he's only played 15 NHL games, and surprisingly is the most that Calgary has out of any of their recent draft classes or acquisitions in this case, except for Samuel Honzek, who's at 23, but right now of the prospects, the most injured for Calgary. And so, not going to see him anytime soon. Calgary did on Saturday assign William Stromgren back to the Wranglers and recalled Matvei Gradin to the fold. And so you have the number 28 pick from the 24 draft coming back to the big roster. But again, just 5 NHL games for him. Cole Reshny, the number 18 pick in 2025. Colin Potter continues to be somebody who every farm report that the Calgary Flames put out, or anytime you're looking at what's going on with Calgary's system, he's somebody who you take note of. And so there's a lot of capital that Calgary hasn't really put onto NHL ice yet, which I understand is a critique of Ryan Huska and the powers that be, instead of playing some of these guys over the likes of a continuing struggling Jonathan Huberdeau. What are you doing? It's a reasonable argument. I think the cool part for Calgary is if you add this draft capital now, where you're having 2 first-round picks the next 2 years, likely a really good chance of having possibly 2 in the 2028 draft. And if Calgary's not done trading players this season, you might have a lot of, middle pick prospects that can make a big difference in the next year or two, just because of the quantity that you've accumulated as well. Back to the ice, though. Andersson trade happens on Sunday. Immediate turnarounds with Calgary competing at home again on Monday. They'll take on the New Jersey Devils. We preview that game next as this edition of Locked on Flames continues. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post on the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for the show, I'd go straight to Indeed. Very specific about what I would be looking for. Real experience, not just some resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get the post seen, you use Indeed sponsored jobs, get your listing to stand out, and you reach those quality candidates much faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Coming up on Tuesday's edition of Locked on Flames, we'll get to our official opponent power jersey rankings. Usually do that every single Monday, but for the second straight week, postponing that to Tuesday's show because Rasmus Andersson's trade, that was big news on Sunday night, and so on, to make sure we get to it on this edition of Locked on Flames. We'll also recap the New Jersey and Calgary game that's happening on Monday. Flames host the New Jersey Devils at Scotiabank Saddledome. First meeting of the teams this season, and you have a New Jersey team that's not horrible on the road, 12-13-0 so far, but the scoring differential is at -25. It's one thing that I've mentioned about Calgary all year long is the Flames have been somewhere between the wild card and the worst team in the Western Conference all year long, and they're sitting at just a -17 goal differential. I mean, they're closer to being the team right outside of the postseason, the Anaheim Ducks, than they are being the -50 that Vancouver is. So it's pretty apparent that New Jersey at times either struggles to stop pucks going into their net or getting them themselves. 124 total goals is all so far for New Jersey, and it's bringing Jacob Markstrom back to Scotiabank Saddledome, which is where he played for a while. And always like when Markstrom comes back because you get a chance to kind of see the reason that he's no longer there with Dustin Wolf in net versus some of the good things that he did with Calgary so far. But just 12-11-1 so far this year for Markstrom at 3.37 goals against per game. And I'm excited to see how Calgary does against this team. Maybe going on a little bit of a scoring barrage would feel kind of nice right about now. In fact, Calgary just tied up with New Jersey in terms of the season goals per game scored, which I imagine feels absolutely inconsequential because Calgary is just a bad offensive team. Great, good for you, slightly moving up the rankings offensively. You're not a team that's putting in enough scoring, but yeah, I mean, these are two really similar teams. I think the best thing for Calgary, they continue to be excellent at home, 13-7-2 at Scotiabank Saddledome, but the last 10 games have pretty much gone the same way. Calgary's pretty much 500, New Jersey Devils 4-6-0, and so we'll see what happens in this matchup. Jack Hughes, 9 assists over the past 10 games, kind of the hot hand right now. For New Jersey, Michael Backlund, what a resurgence now. And with Rasmus Andersson gone, you have one of the longest tenured Flames, the longest tenured Flame, getting 12 goals, 19 assists so far this season. And then I like the play of Connor Zary as well. He's been stepping up the way that you need some of the current NHL young players to be doing right now. 4 goals, 5 assists over the last 10 games as Calgary comes in this matchup with the 21-23-4 record. And it's a game that Calgary should win. You know, you have New Jersey sitting there at 50 points, which coincidentally enough is 4 points more than Calgary has, but the Devils are right at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings with the New York Rangers. The bottom out of the Western Conference at 37 points with Vancouver, and that's still 11 points less than the bottom team in the Eastern, which is the Rangers right now. Both teams right about the same. I think Vancouver is 1 game in hand compared to the Rangers. All of that to say, the Western Conference continues to just be a mess in terms of how the teams will wind up in the playoffs. Very top heavy with Colorado. I think they just suffered their 5th regulation loss of the season, but still at 74 points. And then your bottom wild card spot is San Jose at 51. Calgary 5 points back of the Sharks in the standings compared to 64 being atop the Eastern Conference, and your worst wild cards at 57. So a 7-point difference versus 23. The Avalanche have been out of their minds. It's closer to where the Stars and the Wild are at 63 points. All of that to say, excited to see Calgary kind of have a little bit of breathing room in terms of not having all of the trade speculation over their heads with Rasmus being dealt to Vegas. By the way, Vegas is atop the Pacific right now, 2 points ahead of the Oilers. And if you want to look for some sort of silver lining, the idea that Vegas could possibly win the Pacific instead of the Edmonton Oilers, I suppose that's always a win. Suppose is the wrong word. I know that that's always a win. Any year, you know, Calgary can go winless except for beating the Oilers. That's always a win in my mind, even hyperbolically. So we'll see what happens. Excited to watch a little bit more Flames hockey because I didn't get a chance to see the Saturday game live against the Islanders. So always have to catch those up after the fact. And it's always disappointing because I like watching these games live. Eventually want to bring those to you with our Everydayer Club. So certainly keep your eyes peeled for that too, because we're working on everything that we're going to do beyond delivering you the podcast every Monday through Friday with this first quarter of 2026. We'll try to give you all that information down the road. So thanks for tuning in to Locked On Flames. We invite you to subscribe. Please follow the podcast so you get all of the latest episodes. Share it with a friend because we'd love to be able to continue to build everyone on our YouTube channel as well. Trekking towards 700 subscribers. Please consider clicking that subscribe button. And thanks to all of those who have in just over a month with me in the hosting chair of Locked On Flames. And again, the Everydayer Club is built for you. If you never miss an episode, you can get Locked On Flames ad-free. Plus, that members-only Discord channel, which, again, if we're going to be doing live watches together, that's the place I would be doing that. So go to lockedonflames.supercast.com to learn more about becoming a member of the Everydayer Club. For those of you on video, I invite you to stick around. We're sending you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And for those of you on audio, please make your second listen NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. My name is Ryan G. Thanks for having fun with us. We'll see you again Tuesday for more Locked On Flames.